Happy holidays, everyone. Welcome to Art Talk number 224. Today, we are going to be talking about American photographer, surrealist artist, and model Lee Miller. She might have been known best for being the muse and partner of surrealist artist Man Ray, who we've discussed in a previous Art Talk. But her son discovered and helped promote her exceptional work as a fashion and war photographer and build her reputation as an artist in her own right. But amongst all of these titles, her career as gourmet chef is often overlooked, and that's what we'll be highlighting today. This underdocumented period of her life is brought to light by her granddaughter, Ami Bouhazan, who has painstakingly compiled Miller's favorite recipes in Lee Miller, A Life with Food, Friends, and Recipes. I got tired of the last 20 years of her life being overlooked, said Bouhazan. It happens quite a bit when creative women's stories are told. It's like after childbirth or around menopause, their inventiveness miraculously no longer exists. Ami Bouhazan used her access to never-before-published manuscripts and photographs from the Lee Miller archives to position cooking at the center of her subject's extraordinary creative life. Far more than just a collection of recipes, this volume features more than 180 of Miller's photographs, like the one seen here, and nearly 100 of her recipes. This one is of the dining room at the Farley farmhouse that Miller purchased with her husband, Ronald Penrose, in 1949. Miller moved to Paris in the 1930s to pursue her photography career along with Man Ray. There, they became embedded in the surrealist scene, becoming friends with and colleagues with Jean Cocteau, Paul Éluard, and Pablo Picasso, who even painted a tile in her kitchen, seen right here in this photo. Miller photographed World War II, aiming to document war as historical evidence alongside Life magazine photographer David E. Sherman. They photographed Nazi corpses, children dying in a Vienna hospital, and the horrors at concentration camps like Dachau and Buchenwald. Following her war reportage, Miller suffered from PTSD, and cooking was her escape. She studied at Le Cordon Bleu in Paris and had intended to write a cookbook, having begun a collection of cookbooks so large that her husband built a separate room in the house just to store them all. Touches of Miller's life as a gourmet chef are documented back in the familiar pages of Vogue. In 1965, Miller shared recipes like green chicken for 8 people in a spread documenting her transition from photographer to chef. The author Riley describing how she cooked surrounded by Picassos and the newest kitchen gadgets. And here we can see some of those friends that she shared meals with. Her cover of Vogue, seen here, is where her intersections of model and chef cross. Not only did she grace the cover, but the magazine featured many of her recipes. And it's not such a leap to describe Lee Miller's cooking as an art, and one that was frequently performed for artists and other cultural figures. The visual appeal of her dishes and their presentation on the table were of paramount importance to her. Some, such as the oft-noted cauliflower breasts, took up the friskiness of surrealism, but there could also be mischief in their titles and ingredients. Green Goddess guacamole became Green Bitch, as she called it, with the addition of Angostura rum. Cookery was the grounds for Miller's final and perhaps most fulfilling reinvention. Cooking is pure therapy, she once said. Calling it Miller's most extraordinary personal accomplishment, Bouhazan credits Miller's cooking as the means with which she combated serious PTSD and persevered to become an extraordinary hostess and chef. I hope you all enjoyed learning about Lee Miller's culinary endeavors, but now considering that it is the final town hall of the year, I wanted to keep in tradition with years past and take a look back on some previous art talks that we've had throughout the years. So in 2020, we began these Zoom town halls when COVID transformed the way we had meetings and worked from home. Our very first art talk highlighted American sculptor Alexander Calder, and we looked at some of his outdoor large red sculptures as well as his smaller indoor hanging mobiles. Another one of my favorites in 2020 was Henri Matisse, who we have revisited several times, including this year. So moving on to 2021, we got a little more comfortable working from home, and the SMA town halls became a weekly staple. A couple of my favorites from this year were the splashy LA poolside paintings of David Hockney and the spooky and macabre art of Tim Burton for Halloween. 2022 was an iconic year. We celebrated 100 town halls that year and spanned artists and topics from the old master Diego Velázquez to the flowers of Georgia O'Keeffe, from the art of the Hubble Space Telescope to classic Americana with Norman Rockwell, and even wearable art finishing the year with Patek Philippe and Hermes. We could be so lucky to wear Patek Philippe or Hermes. In 2023, we highlighted groundbreaking modern artists like Basquiat, Rauschenberg, Lichtenstein, and the Banksy murals in Ukraine. And we also looked at more classical artists like Manet, Rodin, and Michelangelo. That brings us to this year, where again, we've covered a diverse array of artists and craftspeople. Some of my favorite art talks of this year have to be Frida Kahlo, which has not been the first time we've talked about her. I really enjoyed the Naomi Campbell exhibit at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. And as well, learning about Camille Pissarro being the inspiration to many famous neo and post-impressionists. And I also really enjoyed looking at the Olympic mascots from throughout the years. I continue to learn so much from these art talks every week, and I hope that you've learned something along the way as well. Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays, and now to the studio.